Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic.
Welcome to Celtic Ligers, the
Part 2.
the podcast with no part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so make sure you listen to part 1. I hope you listen to that, because otherwise this won't make any sense, you know?
Yeah. What's your favourite part 2, like, of films? Sequel?
What's my favorite sequel?
Yeah.
Probably, this is so stupid, but probably, I'm really trying to avoid saying The Dark Knight, but honestly, I really like The Dark Knight, you know?
Ooh.
I thought it was like, and
Yeah,
then the
that's
other one
wrong.
that I thought of was Hot Fuzz. I liked Hot Fuzz, even though it's not really a
Yeah,
sequel.
that's not really a part 2.
Yeah. Part 2, probably the one that I said there.
Yeah.
Oh, I like Back to the Future too, as well.
I don't like those films.
I like them.
I think they show disrespect to the past. I'm with China on this one. You know, China doesn't want people making time travel movies.
Really?
Yeah, it shows a disrespect to the past.
Did you know that Back
Yeah.
to the Future was an expression already? Because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was an expression. I thought it was just like, oh, it's like a funny thing. It's like, we have to go back to the future, do you know?
Yeah, no, it means like, I can't even think what it means. I know it so well.
The reason I know is because the reason I found that out this week is because I think it was either Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, I can't remember. No, it was Fianna Fáil criticising the Living with COVID plan, and they said there's a risk of being like Back to the Future. And I was like the movie, you morons? And then I looked it up and realised it was an expression, and I was like, oh, right, okay.
What does it mean?
Just means repeating the same mistakes and just being like...
But are you sure? Really? That doesn't make any sense. Back to the Future saying...
Very strange that they would say that. Their expression refers to the time...
Where did...
Huh?
Yeah?
The expression refers to the time when one has to stop overthinking about the things they could or not have done in the past, so that what happened wouldn't have happened. Do not dwell on the past. The past has been written with ink, the future in pencil. What a stupid definition thing.
Where did you get that?
I just typed it in, what Back to the Future expression, and it was the first thing that came up on Google.
Do you know what minding mice to the crossroads means?
No.
It means being cheap.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's probably the most, like, obscure, opaque expression I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, because I thought it would be like, you know, making a mountain out of a molehill. It's like minding mice at a crossroads. Yeah. You know, it's like, why are you taking care of something small at this juncture when you could be, you know?
Or like, it's like herding cats or something, you know?
Yeah. Something like that.
I had a friend who used to say that, you know the phrase women in the workplace?
Uh-huh.
People used to, like, he said that sounds like, when people say the cat among the pigeons.
Wait, there's a phrase, women in the workplace?
But like, people used to say that phrase quite a lot.
Yeah, just about like women in a place.
In the workplace. But they'd always say women in the workplace. And
Weird.
it just sounds like someone saying, it's like women in the workplace, like cat among the pigeons. You know?
Right, yeah, that's funny, yeah. Yeah, we should
Like
think of a reason for that expression.
Like it's so in disarray somehow, you know, by having women in the workplace.
Sure, you know yourself, it's women in the workplace, and you go like, what did you... Somebody thinking that's an expression their entire life and then just saying it out loud once, you know?
Yeah. The other one was, you know, a professional woman was a prostitute.
Yeah.
I thought that was Margaret Thatcher. I was like, what a professional woman.
Exactly, that's the type of professional I like.
Her
and you know, Christopher Hitchens, they're one and the same, you know?
What was her and Erin Brockovich, two professional women?
Yeah, that I respect.
That are posters of.
Yeah.
I have the Erin Brockovich poster above my bed, and the Margaret Thatcher one at the fall.
And then I pray to one in the evening and the other in the morning.
Yeah, they both block out Mecca.
Guess which one? That's for me to know. You to die trying to find out.
Yeah, that's for me to kill you.
That's okay. Yeah.
Welcome to the Ecosocialist episode.
Oh, Jesus. I really wish you hadn't posted that. I was like, what the... Because I was like, okay, now I have to read it. And then I did.
Ooh.
And then I was like, what the hell are we going to say? Because it's just literally like... It's like some sort of like prostate cancer awareness pamphlet. It's like...
Yeah, so the
do you agree or disagree? It's like...
The pamphlet is by Rupture, just so everyone knows before you
go on, yeah.
Because I do want to hear. But it's a magazine... It's a pamphlet called What is Ecosocialism? By John Molyneux, not Peter Molyneux.
Yeah, amazing video game maker, incredible. And made some of the best games in his head than any other person.
And then did not make them in reality. He rules the way everyone always buys it every time. He's like, you can plant the seed.
Keeps buying it. Even now they're making
like the same game 3 times and make the same lives each time with Fable. And each time he's like, you can plant a seed. And then by the end of the thing, you can watch it grow in real time. And then he does it 3 times, and people are like, I can't believe you've done this to me.
This time, I have a good feeling, though. I love, because there is a Fable HD remake or a remake coming out. And I'm really looking forward to the promises he makes now with this current generation. Because the stuff that he said in 2003 is actually possible now. So now he's going to have to up the ante. He can't say you could plant a seed and have a tree like when you come back to it.
Yeah.
But now it'll be like Milo. It'll be like this game will anticipate what you're going to say, and it will
Was Milo the one? And it's like there was a projection of the like CGI boy, and the boy's like running around the house, and then a woman comes up. She's like, "Hey, Milo."
Yeah.
Can you hold this for me? And she like hands him a book.
Yeah. We were talking about this.
Like grabs the book.
Yeah. It was a drawing of a goldfish that she just like she ran over the Kinect. That was what it was called. Fucking hell! And she just ran down it really quickly, and it was almost like the Kinect was so fast. It like picked up the drawing, extrapolated the data, gave it to Milo. Milo was like, "Oh, a picture of a fish," all in a second, and it was like.
So they were like, it was like the shittiest accessory in the world. Like I've seen people try to play games and it just doesn't work.
It's like if you went to like the science museum and it was like swat all these imaginary insects. That was what it was like. What about if you had something in your own home where it's like you have to wave your arms like crazy for like, I don't know, fucking a deal or no deal, like piece of shit game, do you know, that you could give for like a tenner.
It was like something of TGK back in like
it's exactly 90s, like that. You know? What's the one, your man, the fucking little
elf
gnome thing? What's that guy called? Ludi or
Elfie?
Yeah, you know Elfie the elf.
Elfie the goblin.
Yeah.
I think his name was just like Seamus or something, wasn't it?
No, it's something else. But it was funny because that was a pre-existing French character that they were just like, I guess they could afford it.
Oh no, I can't believe he wasn't Irish.
No, because it was funny because I remember opening the Beano one time in like 1998, and I'd seen that little elf character forever, and I was excited about the idea of like learning Irish and watching this new TV channel, Tina G. And I remember not understanding a word of it and hating it and finding it boring, but like really trying to persist. And but the one thing that would keep me coming back was just a slight cartoon character, just a cartoon character, and I could be like, this guy is cool. He's actually great. I love Elfie the elf, you know, with his awful voice, and he looks like shit.
Yeah, I'm so influenced by him. It's like you're going around the playground pretending to be him.
Yeah,
he can't speak Irish.
But in this comic, I remember a full-page ad for a PS1 game featuring this character under a completely different name, and I just at that time I was like, what the fuck? I couldn't make sense of it because he was so synonymous with Tina G. I was like, how is this possible? What is going on? You know,
he's cheating on you.
But then I found out, it's like a French character, and Ubisoft, I think, made the game at the time.
It's like Muzzy. He's just dubbed like Muzzy in every language, you know?
Exactly like Muzzy. Like when you find out, learn French. It's like, no,
you're German.
He's Irish. You're supposed to learn Irish with Muzzy.
Oh, no.
He's an Irish thing.
I only learned him in French, and I saw him in German, and I was like, you fucking crowd. You lied to me.
Yeah, and Muzzy, Well, Muzzy himself was alright, but the rest of the characters I didn't care much for.
Who were the other ones?
They were like rats with crowns and stuff, you know?
That was his boss.
Anyway, so John Molyneux made Muzzy.
Yeah.
And
he was
then wrote this pamphlet.
Will be your friend in real time. You
Yeah.
know? Muzzy was, suck your dick.
So John Molyneux made that Muzzy that could suck your dick, and he also wrote Ecosocialism.
What is ecosocialism?
What is ecosocialism?
And that's the first thing. It's like, you're the one writing the book. Do you know what I mean? You tell me. Don't ask me.
And then Jess Spear. We also have to point out Jess Spear.
Jess Spear answered the question. John Molyneux spent 10 years trying to formulate the question. What is ecosocialism? And then she's like, this is what it is.
He's like, oh, okay. Back to my day job, I don't know what he does, Back to the mines.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just like an acid miner or something. I wonder who he is.
I don't know. This is great for this episode. Is like, this is going to be our eco-socialism episode. These two people who we do not know, and it's like, who are they? I don't know. Anyway, what did you make of this?
Yeah, what did you make of it?
I liked it. I thought it was good. Yeah.
You like eco-socialism or you like the book?
Both. There was a point where, like, I was reading it and I was reminded of a business class that I did. It was like a start your own business class, and these teachers for some reason were very like down on anybody who was left, in any way. And they would like take a joke. They would make a joke about people on the left in the class for whatever reason. I don't know why they felt so threatened, but either way, this guy was talking about like I think it was like market research, and the whole argument was to not shape the data to get the conclusion that you already want.
Yes.
So the example that he used was being handed a pamphlet on the train by this, socialist people before profit type guy.
Yeah.
And
he's wearing a Muzzy t-shirt. His hat has the elf from Digigahar on it.
Yeah. And he was trying to, but that actually not dissimilar. He was saying like, and according to this pamphlet, if we just did this, it was going to be this incredible, brilliant, amazing society. And it's like, don't be starting from that premise, essentially. And I was like, could it be that that guy is actually right though? Like, and like I was reading it and so much of it was kind of gelling with me. And it was very similar to a lot of the stuff that we've kind of said on the podcast anyway, that I was sort of like, am I just...
Yeah, am I 2 steps ahead?
No, am I being like... Is this like preaching to the choir at this point where I'm reading it and I just kind of like, yeah, this makes sense to me. But like there was a part of it where it's like, all we need to do is simply change the entire outlook that every person on the planet has about the consumption. And I was just like, whew, might be a bit, yeah. But like, I haven't said that. It's like, that sounds like a criticism, but it's like, well, if that's what it needs doing, let's start figuring that out. You know what I mean? Because I do agree. Like you only need to look at the Green Party to be like, no, you can't just, the market and capitalism is incompatible with green economic policy. It needs to be tied up with socialism and stuff like that. And
have you read about?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
You read about microplastics?
I'm presuming they're like when you... I think if I have it correctly, I know in relation to like if you reuse a plastic water bottle, it's like the plastic actually deteriorates and we're getting to a point where the accumulative of these like, plastic particles is like in the drinking water and stuff like that. And
that's it. Yeah, they're like it's like lumps of plastic basically just floating around everybody, even in like babies in the womb and stuff. And then that's like the ultimate, like we're like literally absorbing just all the pollution that capitalism produces. Do you know what I mean? Like it's in our like babies. You know.
Yeah.
Not be too mental about it, but like. It just feels like Well, yeah, I mean, the current system doesn't, it's not going to, I don't know, do they have any solution? Like, I read all this stuff and it's talking about how Joe Biden's, like, making really big steps towards, like, you know, environmental policy. But, like, all of it's been, like, in 20 years, he's going to stop this. Or, like, he's going to reduce the need for this, you know?
I think more when
It's
people
also
say
low-
that. Go on, sorry. We're a bit of a delay, so apologies.
No, I'm going to show off your video, just so you...
Yeah, good idea. No, I was just saying, like, when I see that with Joe Biden, I see it as more like to take advantage of heightening that hypocrisy, because it's like, I don't think anybody from the left who says, like, and Joe Biden's doing amazing things actually really believes that. They're just trying to flatter the egos of people who kind of feel themselves ostensibly right.
And, well, this was in The Economist, like, you know,
Yeah.
this is like the mainstream, where they're just
Oh,
like,
okay, well then, yeah, that's different.
they're
Yeah.
just like, they're so amazed that anything's been done at all. You know what I mean? They're like, wow, he's ruining the fossil industry by reducing their profits by a tiny amount, you know?
So were they angry with this, or were they trying to be like, wow, isn't this great, you know?
They were trying to be neutral about it, but I think they were just like, wow, it's really is a step, like, you know?
Yeah, but maybe that's their agenda as well. It's like they need to make it seem like progress
I think
when
they,
it's not.
I think they genuinely see it as progress, you know? Because, like,
Okay.
we talk about this, like, they don't understand that. But they're like, ideology that wouldn't permit, like, a further progress. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they don't want climate change. They're just like, obviously, capitalism must keep going, so let's hope capitalism can advance fast enough. Or, like, adapt fast enough. And they're like, wow, it is adapting, you know?
Well, I think it's like, you know, on a micro level for me, like sometimes I'll have like, you know, where sometimes you're clearing out your press, for example, and it's like, all of these are recyclable, but I would take me like hours to just empty out all these fucking jars, and there's all this mold and it's disgusting. I'm just like, I'm throwing it in the bin this one time, and nature's going to have to take this hit just for me because I can't be arsed. You know?
Yeah.
I imagine it's like that, except on a way bigger level. It's like, well, I've got like, it's like, I see people making money off of fracking. I know it's killing the planet, but like, I'll just do a little bit of fracking,
Yeah.
and nature will just take this hit as it has done in the past. And you know, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
That could be it, but also there's the other part where it's like, you know, well, you only need the types of people who are making these decisions and investments and, you know, availing of those quote unquote opportunities. They're all people who love the game, you know, so they don't really care about the consequences because they're not going to be around. They can, the thing that they're focused on is creating a fortress for themselves and their family.
Yeah.
And after that, it's like, I don't really give a shit. The planet can burn. Like, I only need to care about the people who immediately come after me, not the people who come after them.
That's it. Which even in my head is so weird. Like, imagine, so you're like a billionaire and you build your, you know, you're like climate-proof fortress on New Zealand or wherever, like Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
There's like, you have your kids, and then what? Do the kids just marry each other or what? Like, that's the bit that gets to me. It's like, even if I like a PlayStation 5 in my fortress, you're gonna get bored. Like, it just doesn't seem like a good life,
Yeah.
you know? And then, like, your kids are fucked. Like, everyone you know is fucked. So maybe you just don't care. Or maybe you're like, just haven't thought that far ahead. You know?
Or maybe like it's like The Sims or something. It's like, I know with Trump, like I like, you know, he's no Peter Thiel type maniac. He you know, he's a unique maniac. But he had like something written in a prenuptial agreement with Martha Maples that she would get, like, if they got divorced, that she would get like, you know, what was it? However many grand more per kid she provided him, you know?
Oh, really?
And he was like, there was a quote that he said, if I have at least 5 kids, one of them's probably going to be like me. For some reason, those were the odds that he had in his head. He
1
was
in
like,
5.
yeah, he was like, at least one of them is going to be like me, so that'll be good for me. And I don't think we can discount how many people are, like, I guess because, you know, billionaires, there's actually comparatively few of them. There's a lot more
Yeah.
than there should be, but ultimately, like, they're these crazy people who have commodified life to such a degree that they're able to look at these as kind of like, oh, I have 3 kids, I'm doing really well, and
Yeah.
now I have this, and
Apparently
you know,
Elon Musk
yeah.
is like 25 kids. Like,
yeah, he's got a crazy amount of kids.
yeah, I never heard that. There's like rumors that he's just like pumping out the kids, or like paying women
Yeah.
to pump them out.
Yeah, but yeah. The as for practical things that the thing suggests, they did actually suggest. They suggested some things broadly speaking, but one of the ones that I liked that they suggested was, on a local level, deprivatizing the bins and recycling services. And I was like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Why? What were they saying that would do?
Well, they just said it was a start, and it's kind of like to put them. They're saying that like the community should be in charge of all this type of stuff, and one of the things that was mentioned in the pamphlet as well, which kind of spoke to me, was they quoted Marx and how his the capitalism alienates people from their surroundings, obviously, and nature in particular, as in like we see nature as external to ourselves rather than we're actually a part of nature. So it's not like there are these endless resources to mine. It's like, no, this is it. We are the resources as well. We are people who exist on a planet, and it's not like just some bag you dip into and you take out what you need for yourself. It's like, anyway, going broad like that.
I read a book by who's that guy who got ball cancer? Not
Des Bishop.
Not Des Bishop, and not the other one. George Monbiot. Do you know him?
Oh, I didn't know he had cancer. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read his piece about like he had to decide. It sounded like like Sophie's Choice for Men, where he was like,
Yeah.
it's like you can get it cut out, right?
Yeah.
Or you can get it irradiated. But like, it's like one of them might work, but if it doesn't, you'll die.
Mhm.
And then the other one, it will make you live, but like it'll just completely ruin your dick forever.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, which one do I do?
Yeah.
It's like, it would be a hard choice.
I don't want to like.
Yeah,
It sounds silly when you say it like that, but like also at the same time, like that would.
Because it's not like you die for sure with one of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One's is like, this might work. If it doesn't, you'll die. And then you're like, so what if it works? And then I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then imagine if you were like, you are the one that cut your dick off, whatever.
Mm.
And then they were like, oh, the other one actually works all the time. You'd be like, no. Oh no, you.
Sorry, I was just reminded of something that you said actually on the podcast a while back, and kind of in relation to what we're talking about, but also the COVID crisis in general.
Okay.
Whereby,
Can I go back to my point afterwards? Is that alright?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. I thought that was the end of the point.
No, the point.
Finish it.
He talked about this idea of the commons, and it used to be that like bits of the land were just available to anyone to use. So like in Ireland, say traditionally, it would have been like a lot of the bog would have been held in commons. So anyone could go and like dig up peat or whatever the hell you do. And he said that like you should bring this idea back so that maybe you don't like nationalize every company, but you have it so that all the land is held by the commons or like by the people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's then lent out to business or people to live on, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So say like, you know, Amazon wherever it's, you know, sites where, or like the holding company that Amazon has one, you know, own the sites. It's like the people through the government would directly lease the land out to the company.
Mm.
And like obviously it's not like now where they would just sell it to them at a low price and then rent it back off them. It's like they would, but that would be a mechanism that would like allow people more control, because like say you didn't want Amazon because you felt like it wasn't environmentally friendly, you could just not let them set up a factory, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or you could like you know, say we'll let you do it, but these are the you know, standards
conditions.
that we want you. Yeah, exactly. And you get
Are you saying this is in relation to the George Monbiot thing, as in like...
Yeah, he wrote
there
the
would
book.
be...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying that the testicle thing was more like a kind of comparison to... Yeah, it's not a perfect system, but ultimately, like, would this be better than what we have now?
No, I was just saying it's crazy that he had to make that choice. And then he also was told about this other thing.
Okay. I think that was my confusion.
Right.
I think that's where I thought your point was finished, is because you reached the end of a completely different anecdote, you know?
Yeah, no. It's
No,
crazy.
that's an idea. That's a good solution.
Like
no, I was...
Sorry, go
Yeah.
on. No, go on.
No, you go.
No, please.
Well, we're not doing this again, so you gotta go.
Okay, the point, I think we made it last time, is that like, we don't live in a unplanned economy, you know? Like the market, we do a lot of regulation of the market. Normally it's just to make rich people richer.
Yeah.
But like if you had a company that like could organise its economy not just to make the most money, but with like different aims in mind. So like a country, it would have enough control, could organise its economy around creating green technology or like reducing carbon emission, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that mechanism doesn't exist in capital, because like in capitalism, there's like, it's all about just like almost legally required to make the most amount of money possible, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I don't know if it's true in Ireland. I think it is. But definitely in America. Like if you're on a company board, you're legally required to make decisions with the interests of your shareholders in mind, you know? Monetarily. So if you were like, I don't want to do this because it would like create too many emissions. I mean, I think you're acting against. I don't know if you're acting against a law, like, but like you're acting against the structure of the market, you know, against the company.
Yeah.
So like doesn't allow for people even to make pro-environmental decisions.
Yeah.
Or it obstructs them rather.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And this is kind of what they were saying with this, you know, and also what people are talking about with CETA, with like a separate court system that essentially means that if something's affecting the company's profits, it's like we all become fucking at the whims of shareholders for these companies that, you know, a large portion of these people do not have to live in the society that they're enabling, you know.
Yeah, CETA's so fucked, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
So I read this thing, like I read about that court system. It's called like the investment court or something. And then Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael were saying that they like, they put all this language in that means that countries will now be able to protect, like it will offer protection against being sued because of like environmental stuff.
Okay.
Apparently that's just not the case. Like if you read the thing, that language is really vague. It's just like, oh, we hope no one will sue us because of the environment, but like if you will, that's fine.
And also, like, I think that I know it's about the environment and that's all crucial with CETA, but the thing is, by constantly lumping it with the Greens and making it a green issue, it kind of ignores the broader ramifications of something like that, which is, you know, that it affects way larger parts of Irish society. You know, direct provision and, you know, all these other fucking shitty things. All I'm saying is, like, I think with the Green movement and I mean the Greens, I don't mean the Green movement, the kind of throughout history, and particularly in Ireland, the way that they're kind of seen as these, like, you know, weak, subservient people who kind of are only interested in more bike lanes and kind of squashing the fun, and, you know, there's a whole kind of attitude about that. So when you make it as in like, oh, it's an environmental issue, I feel like there's a large part of the population, maybe not as many now, maybe there's more people that are concerned with the environment. But I remember, like, when I was a kid, I remember saying I didn't know anything about politics, but because I was concerned about the environment, I thought the Green Party were great. So you had to vote for the Green Party. And I remember telling that to parents and older adults and stuff, and they were just like, they would kind of be treating it like, that's whatever, that's bullshit, that's like, let's get some recycling program going, who gives a fuck, who, like, we need to focus on these other things and prioritize this stuff. And I feel like when you put CETA in, when you lump it with the Greens, that's what you're kind of trying to do.
That's it. And like half the country doesn't even, like, I was reading one of the farming sections in the Independent, and there was a guy who, what is it, illegal to dig turf or something now? There's some restrictions.
I don't know. There's a lot of debate over it anyway, because it's a finite resource, I believe, and they're kind of stripping away valuable stuff. Like there's an ecosystem that they're disrupting that took hundreds of years to develop and now might not ever come back.
Right. So I don't understand any of the science behind this because I'm not a farmer.
Neither do I, and I might be completely wrong about what I just said.
But he was like, we can't stop digging peat because we use it for fertilizer. And I know everyone says we can use compost for fertilizer, but what happens, and his example was like, what happens if a banana skin doesn't decompose properly and then it ruins some seeds? Mm-hmm. So his whole thing against, like, basically, like, climate change was like, what if a banana ruins some of my seeds, Yeah. He, like, imagined a situation in which a bad product did some minor damage.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'd rather die.
Yeah.
I'd rather I'd rather West Africa die,
Well, that's what they're saying with this, which in this pamphlet as well, which was, and it's what Naomi Klein has been saying as well, and is that there is no environmental movement that leaves people behind. Like what he's saying, like, it's kind of, it sounds stupid, and kind of it is, but like, also there's a point, which is like, nobody's coming for me. I'm not going to be protected, so I need to do for me. And if that, the way that I've done it for years is this way, and it's worked for me, and this thing has a potential to fuck up the amount of money and my livelihood, so I'm not going to do that. And you need to convince me otherwise. And the government isn't interested in doing that because it would require, a bunch of things changing.
But you're never going to convince everybody.
No, you're never going to convince everybody.
He's just going to take that L,
Yeah, no, there's people, but that's like, I remember that when Bernie Sanders was running in 2016, that was one of the things where it's like, they were talking, there was the Hillary Clinton approach, which was, the coal miners, we love fossil fuels, we love all this stuff, and, we got to appeal to them. And then if people were saying, what about the jobs? And I was like, get jobs coding, which is what Biden did say as well. And then Bernie Sanders, apparently there was a town hall that I remember seeing where like this person was like, but my job is gone, and he's just kind of going like, and I don't think it's going to come back, and he's just like, it's probably not, like, and he was there and he was just saying like, I know, like, it's shit and I understand, but we need to figure something out. And I think that's kind of like what you're saying, is in like, it's not usual for politicians to say that. They kind of either come up with an unsatisfactory solution, which is go learn to code, or they kind of promise that they're not going anywhere, but it isn't this acknowledgement. It's like, I think you and I both know that those jobs aren't coming back, but also that we can't go back to them because otherwise the planet will die. I just think that there's a language and a way to communicate with people to make sure that and some creative thinking is beyond my kind of fucking capabilities, if I'm honest. But I found that interesting, and the privatized bin thing was because I was reading this pamphlet, like, say, where it's like, we just need everybody in the world to just change the way they think and approach, and we need to get rid of capitalism. You just feel like hyperventilating, like, oh my god. And then when it's like, and way to start doing that would be to stop the bins from being privatized. Like, okay, so, like, calming down just a little bit. The idea, like, that makes sense to me. That because like I have been in like Dublin and experienced like the fucking privatized bin service, which is awful and insufficient. And like what we were talking about when we spoke about recycling a few episodes ago, like a large part of why they don't recycle that is because it's like expensive or this, that, and the other, you know. And those are solutions. If these services were publicly owned, it could start to address some of the things that you were talking about. You would feel like there was more of an ability to be able to control the materials that are recycled and how we do recycling and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like another thing is, you know, stuff is becoming increasingly automated at the moment, you know? And one of the things is that, like, all the machines, like automation, you know, there's a difference between, like, I don't know what the terms are, like machination and automation. And it's like, one is when you bring in equipment that sort of helps someone do their job. Like, you know, if you ever see someone collecting rubbish and they like have one of those dinosaur claws, you know those? And then the other one is like automation is when you get someone, machinery that replaces someone's job, you know, or replaces an industry, you know?
Yeah.
And since more stuff is becoming automated, it would make more sense if we, like, as a country or whatever, as a group, own the machinery, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Because what's happening at the moment is, say, like Amazon's not always the best example, but like, say they're building one of those, what do they call them, like supply centers? They have some funny name for them.
Yeah, what are they? They're like happiness centers or wellness
something weird,
centers.
like they're like supply fulfillment centers or something.
Fulfillment centers, that's it. Yeah.
And they use the term, like, I don't know if it will be, but some of them are what they call lights out, which means that, like, you don't need lights because there's no one working in them.
That's insane.
And it's all just people. No, they use people, they make them wear nappies so they don't have to go to the toilet. But like, they're working towards making them lights out.
The flesh is weak.
And then
you know?
what you're going to have is just all the money that goes into Amazon just goes directly to the top because they're no longer paying wages, you know? So it makes sense. Like, I've heard ideas of, like, you tax them for the wages that they would pay a worker for each machine. Even that's not perfect because the machines are so much more efficient. But, like, it's an idea. Or, you know, but if we own the machines, it would mean that we have so much more control, you know?
Yeah.
Again, and it would, like, give us control over the direction things are moving. It just feels like at the moment there's no control over companies at all, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You said something. I wrote down the point and then I just glanced down again and I remembered that I forgot to say it about Boris Johnson and the COVID crisis.
Yeah.
And the thing, because you said before, like, because we were just trying to figure out, like, or at least imagining what the thought process is when you kind of just are aware of climate change, but then just continue on doing whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing you said a while ago was that they think that they can reverse it. That's probably the thing, you know? Like, it's like, but it's, you get an example of this with the COVID crisis where you have somebody like Boris Johnson who's like, you know, Krusty the Clown in that episode where all TV is off the air and he realizes he can be the only thing on the TV, you know? It's like, wait a minute, nobody else is working? Well, like, why don't we just deny the impact of the virus, push all these people out there, make a tidy profit so we have some sort of like nest egg, or we look like we're this enterprising nation just as we pull out of the EU, and then all of a sudden COVID deaths just like, you know, like just swarm them, and they're like, oh shit, what'll we do? And so the solution that they come up with is to go all in on the vaccine, and then they start doing stuff with the vaccine. I think we spoke about this, so I don't want to be repeating, but just the vaccine thing where it's like, take one dose now and another in 2 weeks. Okay, how about a month? We do a month, and it's like, we don't know what that'll do. We'll do a month and we'll see what happens. We'll get more people vaccinated, and then it just turns out that like all this gambling sort of pays off, and it's kind of like, haha, we did it, you know? And there's a part of them that thinks that this is the same thing with the climate. It's like, oh yeah, it's bad now, but don't worry, we'll pull this out of the bag. We got it. You know, some sort of ingenuity or human ingenuity will save the day. Those Poindexters and fucking Harvard universities or Oxford, you know, they'll come up with some bullshit that we can inject into our veins and make us live forever.
Yeah, that's true. There's like some fucked up box that'll take all the CO2 out of the air, you know?
Yeah, that's what's probably going to happen. But, you know, we'll leave that until the absolute last minute to find that out. And then the whole planet's like falling around your ear. And also, you know, you have this great canary in the coal mine, which is the global south, which you just is like a million miles away, just like when COVID hit and everybody was like, yeah, that's something that happens in China, it's not something that happens here. It's like we get to look at what happens in, you know, Africa and all these places, and then once it gets like, you know, a continent is drowning, then we can start figuring out how to remove some of the CO2 from the air. But I don't know. I mean, they might be in for a rude awakening. But maybe it'll be like with the vaccines, and we'll be like, well, I didn't think you could do it, Boris, but you've actually reversed 100 years of industrial gases in the air.
Yeah,
you know?
That's it. Like, imagine if we were already dead. Like, imagine if, you know, all these microplastics. Imagine if they were just like, yeah, there's too many in your body already, so by the time you're 60, you'll be dead. Or you'll get Alzheimer's or something. Yeah. Like, imagine if we were the last, just because of something that was already too late.
Yeah. That'd be funny. Would it be funny? You know?
Yeah, that'd be funny, I think.
I'd certainly be very cheesed off at having spent a year inside. It was like, fuck, if I knew I was going to die anyway.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I mean, we're all going to die. I mean, maybe not me. As I said before, I might be the one, you know?
Yeah. Would you probably feel guilty if you were the one, would you?
Yeah, that'd be, and that's exactly why I'll be the one, because it would be just so typical, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Be like, why me forever? Like,
yeah.
Great.
Not enjoying your life because you're feeling too guilty. That's what would happen to me, you know?
Oh yeah, here's the thing I've written about that, down about the pamphlet as well. Local democracy is interesting. I'd like to know more about it. And is it really, is the profit motivator the only thing that's, like, if we remove that, would people stop acting selfishly, essentially? Was what I was coming to with this, reading this document, where I was kind of like, oh wow, this sounds great. And then I get to the end and I was like, I don't know why, but I thought of that Jackie Weaver clip, you know, you have no authority here, you know, and she's like, have you not seen that? No?
What's that?
Oh, it's like some UK town council Zoom call, and Jackie Weaver is like booting people off the call, and these people, she's like a Tory, and so, but she was being interviewed by, you know, everybody, because it was such a funny online clip, and like, you know, where she was being harassed by these awful, you know, other people in this council meeting, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know the context of them, but I know that she's a Tory, so I inherently, I'm just going to not like her anyway.
Yeah.
But, and if she's a Tory booting people off a Zoom call for giving out to her, then I'm going to be like, I probably like you. But anyway, you know, he was going, Jackie Weaver, you have no authority here. You do not have the right. And he's, you know, they're really taking it seriously, like this very small town council. And it's like, I guess, and so they should probably, I don't know. But anyway, what I'm saying is, even on that small level, I was thinking of the dysfunctionality of that local democracy, you know?
Yeah.
And just wondering about this thing in practice where it's like, you know, we just have more of that. And would it stop people from being petty and power hungry if the profit motivator was removed?
Like, it definitely wouldn't, but the difference would be that it would, like, remove the, like, institutionalized element of selfishness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, people are selfish anyway, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, think about the... Sorry, one sec.
No worries.
Yeah, everything's bad. Like, look at the COVID crisis. For the past year, the majority of people have sort of restricted their movement somewhat. You know, not all of them have been perfect, you know. The people still act selfishly, like some people go to parties and stuff, but they probably restrict their movements in other ways. So, but you don't have, like, a counteracting, like an immediate counteracting, like, institutional force of capitalism working against it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we, you know, begrudgingly gave out the PUP, and, like, some people are obviously doing quite badly, but, like, you know, financially we probably help people a reasonable amount on the global scale of things. I'm sure that people, like, don't always act in the most selfish way, particularly if like society is set up in a way that doesn't create the need to.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you're always going to have people like her putting people off the calls, but like, you're not going to have like a guy who spent his life working his way up a company and the only skill he has is being as self-serving as possible, and he's like the most powerful man in the country, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you and Jeff Bezos would be on the same
Yeah.
you know, on the same level of power.
Yeah, and I think that's my difficulty, is just growing up in capitalism and all these things. We quoted Mark Fisher last week, and people have been often quoting him, which is just, or were we quoting him? But anyway, you know, the idea that it's impossible, for some reason, it's more possible to imagine the death of the planet as opposed to the end of capitalism. That's not an exact quote, but it's that thing where I'm like reading this and I was just like, it's very difficult for me to break out of my pre-existing framework and imagine that people could do this, but I'm willing to, because I hate the way things are at the moment.
That's it.
I just want to know how, and I like, it's also maybe it's an imperfect process, but it's got to be better than this. And if that's the way to do it, it's like how to disseminate that information to people so that they can see it as viable as well, because that was one of the other challenges, is like, when I was reading it, it's like, I'm agreeing with this, and maybe I'm just not trusting people enough. But I thought, like, would other people agree with this, or would they be like that business teacher I had who was like, oh, this is just fucking faff, that these people, they don't live in the real world, they don't know what it's really like.
Yeah, like, you know, always, like, say if you look at housing, like, the richest people in Ireland and some of the most powerful are like people who make their money off private housing, you know? Some of the richest people in Europe. But if we took the money out of housing, or like took, you know, most of the money out of it, if we increase like public spending on housing, and sort of took control over the housing economy, it would really reduce the influence of those people.
Yeah,
you know, it would still probably be cronyism, but it would be on the level of like people awarding certain companies, you know, contracts to build public housing. There might be bloat or something, but it wouldn't be like, you know, the same wild houses wouldn't be like, you know, 2,000 quid a month to rent or something like that.
It wouldn't. There would be an opportunity for accountability as well, which is the other thing. Exactly. Because there'd have to be documentation and like this kind of procedure behind stuff on, you know, on a micro level, whatever, just for like people. So
yeah, like I think the mistake people make is that they're like, would the system be perfect? You know?
Yes, exactly.
And like, of course it wouldn't, because it's still like Ireland, you know. But the current system is so bad.
Yeah,
I don't know if anything could be worse, or like bring us in a worse direction. You know, like the current system has brought us to the brink of extinction. You know.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't feel like that at the moment for most people, but like it is. You know, they're talking about like they say there's like 4 degrees of global warming between us and like annihilation.
Yeah,
and the
crazy.
Current thing is like, well, let's see if we can stop the warming at 2 degrees. You know, and like that's where the system's brought us, and I just couldn't imagine a worse system. You know, so even if you were in like the Soviet Union in the 80s. I mean, they still obviously had a lot of global, you know, they had a lot of emissions, but like, you know what I mean? If that was a standard of living, it would be better than dying, do you know what I mean? And that's probably grand. You're probably living better than like 99% of human history, and maybe that's fine, you know? Like if you have a car and you have electricity, and like you can get food to eat every day reliably, you don't even need the car. I don't know why I said a car, but like, that's like living better than any king in the history of time. You know what I mean?
Except for bloody King...
Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley, thank you.
Yeah.
King Triton. He could swim and stuff, you know.
That's true. I didn't think
like hold his breath like a really long time, like forever, because he just lives underwater.
Yeah, you know? And then that's when he dies, when he runs out of air.
That makes sense to me.
At the tender age of how old is he?
1,000 years old. Okay, 27. Sorry, when I said 1,000, I meant to say 27 years old, with his old wizened beard.
Yeah.
You know,
this is no oxygen's getting into his hair.
One thing I wanted to. This isn't to do entirely with the pamphlet, but it's just something I wanted to, because we're talking about it now. But I was struck. Like, I've heard it for about years, because I started listening to, like, let's call it left-wing podcasts in about pretty much like once that was it, and then like kind of exposed me to a bunch of other stuff. And so from about 2017 onwards, I've been listening to this stuff, whatever. Maybe 2018, no, 2017. But anyway, on some of these podcasts I keep hearing the phrase when they invite on a guest and then they talk to him, and then they go, and this is the conversation that the left needs to be having, you know, and this is the conversation we as a society need to be having, and it drives me crazy. You know, like, I just find that such a. They didn't say this in this pamphlet, but while I was reading it, the thing came into my head. It's like, you know, it's the same, and nobody's talking about it, but you know, you're all not ready to have that conversation. It's like I can't get over the fact sometimes where I'm like consuming all this stuff, and then it's like, it just feels like waffle, and also like we'll never sufficiently be having the conversation enough for people's liking. And then how do you even have the conversation?
It's like you're giving out about the conversation we're currently having, that no one's having this conversation. How does this, and how do we, you know, and this is something that society needs to be talking more about. It's like, how the fuck do you even do that exactly? Do you know what I mean? We need to be talking more about, you know, this was in a podcast I was listening to where Brianna Joy Gray on Bad Faith, she was talking to Martin Luther King III, and he's a very frustrating individual to hear speak, for sure. Not as radical as his dad, as she pointed out, but also like some of the stuff he was saying was like. But anyway, that was it. He was somebody. He's just a lib, you know, basically, but he would bring up that, and he's like, and we need to be having this conversation. And it's something that you see, like, you know, the Democrats who are taking up the mantle of Robin DiAngelo and these type of people who are kind of like penance authors, as far as I'm concerned, you know, where it's like, feel bad about this? Well, read this book and you'll know why you should feel bad about it, and you can go back to just living your life absolved. Yeah. But they're like, and this is the conversation we need to be having, and this is what they say. And it's like, it's hard to even say how what we're doing is in any ways different. I guess it's because, like... Well, the difference is we're not telling people to have the conversation.
Well, yeah, that's it.
We're just having it. Yeah. It's like, I used to have a friend, and he really annoyed me. He used to always complain about, like, how we would never meet up and hang out. And then one time, like, we were hanging out. And he was complaining that we never met up and hang out. I was like, we're here now. Like, this is what you're complaining doesn't happen. Just enjoy it or don't. But it's like when Homer's snoring in his sleep, or when he's awake. You know that one?
Yeah.
It feels like that. You're just like, what more do you want to happen? Just have the conversation, you know? Like, I guess maybe they want, like, Biden to have the conversation or something, or whoever runs this country, but I don't know.
It is also another form of just outsourcing. Do you know what I mean? Like, somebody should do something about this. We need to keep having a conversation until the right person is doing something about it. Not me, you know? Yeah. There was a book that I was given one time called Stuff White People Like, which was a collection of the blog posts.
I remember those, yeah.
Yeah, and...
Well, they'd be like garlic bread or something. Would that be one?
Yeah, it was kind of, you know... initially, when I was reading it as a teenager, it was hurtful, because I was like, I like all this stuff, and that means that I'm a fucking basic bitch.
That means I'm
and
white.
Then I realized what you said about garlic bread. Exactly. It's like, what, you saying black people don't like garlic bread?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I was like, but one of the things they said, I always stuck with me, which is white people love awareness. it's their favorite type of charity because it doesn't, to make somebody aware of something, you don't actually have to do anything, you know. So like I always thought that was really good, and that's kind of the discourse that's happening at the moment. It's like we need to be having the conversation about Black Lives Matter, and we really need to be talking about like what it is and what's happening and what we can do. And but nobody's having that conversation. Until we do, then the problem can't be solved, you know.
That's it. And like, it's so egregious when you see people in government having that, saying that.
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
Thing. It's like,
yeah.
You're the one. Like, you're the person who we're conversing around. You know.
Yeah.
Like, was it Trudeau who went on the march to save the planet?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're the issue. like there are a few like.
Trudeau just clapping in the crowd, just like, we need to be having this conversation.
Literally.
While he's voting through a fucking pipeline that goes through an indigenous area.
Like, you're one of the like leaders of like relatively one of the wealthiest countries in the world. I don't know where it actually sits. And you're there like when that march gets to where it's going, i.e. your fucking place of work.
Just hop off. Just walk straight in there. It's like, where are we all going? Yeah. Hey, I work here. All right, see you later.
Just walks in, locks the door behind him. Like, it's like the ultimate symbol, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah. That's exactly the conversation. And I know we talk so much about bad faith in a very affectionate way, at least. Yeah, well, yeah.
No, it's
but like,
really good. Like.
It's really good because of that, because she's like, you know, she'll say, we need to have this conversation, and then the follow-up is like, and what do we do? What's the next thing?
Yeah.
Like, don't say that and don't have any follow-up, and don't say that and like act like this is the truth and like we can just accept it that it's this way. It's like, if it's an imperative that we have to solve this problem, then we have to like do something about it.
That's it. Like, there's a lot of people who don't like the Noam Chomsky episode, but like, it is good, and I shouldn't drop it there. Where she was really asking the question, like, what should the left do to progress, and like what I don't know what the term would be, but like, what bargaining chip should we use essentially? You know, like, is the Trump election like a reasonable bargaining chip, or is global warming, you know?
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about like I like Chapo, I think it's funny, but like, say for ages they took this line that the Democrats wanted to lose. And then like Biden is in the presidency. Do they own the two other, isn't there like, aren't the Democrats, aren't they bigger?
Congress and Senate.
Yeah, so they're bigger in all three bits of the government.
Yeah.
I've never really heard Chapo go back and sort of analyse, like, why, if they felt like the Democrats wanted to lose all the time, did they win, you know?
Oh, well, I mean, they kind of think they meant it in the abstract, as in, like, they're happy with the equilibrium. And I don't think that there's, like...
That's not what they said, though. Like, I know what you're saying. But
well, I think that they meant it as a bit of a... Like, because one of the things they pointed out was that when they were like $2,000 checks, $2,000 checks, $2,000 checks, and then they got in and like, yeah, great. So those $1,400 checks are heading right out to you, and they're like, you said 2,000. No, what we actually meant was 1,400 with the additional, the 600, and also it'll be means tested, and also it's like, I think this is what they're saying. It's like they want to lose. Like, why did they do this? Why are they so determined to, like, when they wield power, it's only so that they can inevitably hand it back to the Republicans, you know, because that's exactly, because like even Nancy Pelosi saying like, oh, we need a Republican Party, just like Joe Biden was saying, we need a Republican Party. It's like, ask a Republican, do we need a Democratic Party? It's like, no, we fucking don't. Yeah. You know, they were like, it should all be Republicans. I would prefer that they didn't exist. Like, it's amazing that, you know, I think that this is what they're talking about, is more that there's an unwillingness to win, you know?
Right.
Like, if they lost, it would be the same to them. They would be kind of like, fine. Which is why which, you know, Brianna Joy Gray was bringing up, was like, how come when there's a movement out in the streets, like Black Lives Matter, when there's this imperative with environmental stuff, he's still going like, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, and even now as well with the college relief, like there was a plan, forgive all college debt. Eventually it's down to like 50,000, forgive 50,000 of college debt. And then now Biden is like, we're going to bring it down to 10,000 Okay. And somebody was like, you need to forgive college debt. And he just goes, I'm not going to do that. Like, to this person who just said this to him. And it's like, I'm not going to do it because rich people will get off. And obviously there's a whole discourse about why that's actually not true. But ultimately it's like, the point that Brianna Joy Gray was making was like, to Noam Chomsky, is like, people keep giving out to her for making Biden more unelectable by pointing out this stuff. And she's like, isn't it incumbent on him to take up these popular positions and policies in order to win my vote? Why am I to blame for pointing that out? And it's to look at all that stuff and then to come, I think it is reasonable to come to the conclusion that they don't really want to win, because they don't govern differently, and they also don't seize the moment at all. And also they keep hiring people who lost. Like your man like Robbie Mook or whoever was responsible for Hillary Clinton's campaign, and Neera Tanden, although apparently she's not going to get in, but it's like all these people who lose them elections keep getting jobs, and then
they
the people who are
Wiener's job back.
Yeah, exactly. What's he doing now, I wonder? Well, I know his wife is still like well in the Democratic Party.
Like he's in jail, is he?
No, I don't think so.
It was so funny the way that was caught on camera.
Like again and again, it's like, I won't do that, and then he does it.
It's like they catch his wife's reaction as well. Where is he now?
Can look up his consultant.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Well, hands on his feet.
Wife divorced him though. Fair play. You got to give it to her.
Yeah, you'd have to. I mean.
Yeah, she did more than Clinton could anyway. So.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm humiliated. I know she did stick around initially, but she is at least gone now. Whereas,
Yeah, I'm sure they're both.
Anyhow, yeah. No, but I do think you're right about the nihilistic approach, because one of the things that happened is Brianna Joy Gray was like doing the force the vote stuff, and all of a sudden it was like the weapons of this kind of sardonic left were like pointed at her. People going like, ugh, yeah. Like, I remember somebody who I really like, Seamus Malafakese, he like posted up a screenshot. It really bugged me, but he was like, I'm adding another word to my blocked list, of blocked words, and it was something like, it was like a comment about like, I don't know what it was. Was it fucking WandaVision or something? Like, I don't want to hear any more about WandaVision, so I'm putting that on here about words that I don't want to read again. And the joke was some of the other stuff, you could see the other words that he'd blocked, and one of them was Brianna Joy Gray.
Okay.
And I always found that really annoying, because there are these people who are like on the left and they're just like, oh, isn't she just this whiny person who's saying about like this fucking goody two shoes who doesn't know what the fuck is going on, and is just because Ryan Grimm was also, who I also kind of was talking about the procedural stuff, like, you don't understand, the squad can't do it for these reasons, and as I said at the time, they just sounded like centrist corporate Democrats. And for this podcast like Chapo, where they were out there campaigning for Bernie, championing this stuff and talking about the potential and possibilities, and then, they went nihilistic really after. No, they were nihilistic before, but like they kind of felt more nihilistic after Bernie lost. And I remember them talking about the force to vote thing, and they were saying they weren't besmirching people, but they'd had this tone in their voice like, I respect those people, but I just don't agree. It's just not going to happen. And, and it was just very dismissive and kind of like, oh, that's a sweet thought. You're very naive to think that things can happen. And, they were kind of taking the position of like, electoral politics is bullshit. Bernie didn't win. That was the last great hope. Maybe there'll be another one, not in my lifetime. So the only thing we can focus on is kind of dissecting the world's event and having a laugh at what's going on. But ultimately, like when Brianna Joy Gray, and I also think, this sounds so completely speculating, but I also believe that that's the reason that Virgil left the podcast,
Really?
Like, well, he's not really left. He's considered still a member, but he's not on as many episodes, and he vanished for like months after Bernie Sanders' defeat, and then he came back with the podcast with Brianna Joy Gray, and they kind of have this, he has that bit of like, yeah, this is bullshit, it doesn't matter, and then Brianna Joy Gray will call him up on it, and then you suddenly kind of have like an interesting thing. It's like, why did you think that? And just trying to get him to be earnest about things. Like he admitted on the podcast that basically he didn't think he was going to be alive past the age of 30. He thought he was probably going to, either kill himself or that he was going to be responsible for his own death,
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, like he was just kind of like, I just couldn't see what life would be like beyond this point, and I didn't care whether I was alive or dead. So, but he was like being quite flippant about it, and she was like, why did you think that? And kind of, probing and whatnot. And there is an element to that with the Chapo gang. And anyway, I just thought it was a strange thing. Just because you brought him up, just that like this was this podcast which were like taking up these conservative arguments and kind of dissecting them and going like, this is so pointless and stupid. And also the lib stuff as well, like the Dan Pfeiffers of the world who worked in the Obama White House, going about like, because one of my favorite clips, like I think it's like required listening, is them reading Dan Pfeiffer's book or sections from it. And one of the things he said is, basically with the Trump supporters, they still have this kind of feeling like they have to win them back,
Okay.
And so what he says is any kind of thing that requires us giving up on a third of the country, I'm not prepared to do that. And there's just this exasperation from Matt Christman, like, does he think you need to win 100% of the electorate? Like, it was just a stupid thing. It was like, if you cut off a third, you have 2/3 left. It's like, it's so insane, the logic behind that.
Yeah.
And so it's dissecting that, but then to have like somebody put forward, here is a solution, here's something that you can do, here's the way the squad can use their power and build support and build a base and kind of bring people on side. And it's like, nah, I can't do that for reasons. I don't want to do it. I'm bored. Bernie exhausted me. Who gives a shit? They won, and I thought, that I just found that's what bad faith doesn't do. Essentially, like, as naive as all as people might think that is, it's I kind of do need to hear somebody say, let's do something, because what's the alternative? And actually that kind of links back into what we were talking about, the whole eco-socialism thing. It's like, if you believed all the stuff that all these things were completely unconquerable, then it's like, why not just give up? It's like, even on a small level, I have to believe that some sort of change is possible. Otherwise, like, what's the fucking point? So anyhow, yeah.
I wonder what people should do.
Yeah, I mean, like, this did make me, funnily enough, it did make me want to join Rise or something, where I was like, I want to be in with a group of people who are having these conversations, but you know what I mean, who are talking about this shit, and I want to understand a bit more, because I was like, I'm getting to a point where I'm like sitting on the fucking sidelines and feeling stupider every day with every article that gets released. And it's like, the meme of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's like, I know he's wrong, but I don't know enough about stars to dispute it.
Yeah.
But
then you should join.
I'm thinking about it, but also, I will be honest, there is still this real cynical part of my heart when it comes to environmental issues. Like, I think it's impossible to overstate how much I got burnt by the Green Party, because I was so in with them when I was younger. I was like, you have to vote Green, they're all about this. And then when they went to coalition the first time, I was like, oh, it's all meaningless, it's all pointless.
Well, that's it. Like, parliamentary politics is like the art of the compromise,
Yeah.
So you're never going to get like if they don't compromise, they don't get in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is, so if you get involved, you're going to see people compromise. But like, you got to go in if you think the party are making good compromises, But that's like, that's what you'll see from getting involved. You won't see like a radical transformation.
I think I also have bought into the propaganda, like, just over years and years of just like environmental issues. Oh yeah, whatever. That's all. It's nice, isn't it, to think about the world, but ultimately, who the fuck are you? You're in Ireland. You don't give. It doesn't matter. So I think the thing that was appealing about the Ecosocialism pamphlet was that it wasn't just environmental stuff, which is what tends to happen, and what the Greens have successfully managed to do, which is extrapolate.
Yeah, that's
I keep using the word extrapolate, but remove the environment from
the economy,
yeah, or the politics or anything like that. It's like, here's where we do the big boy stuff. What is it? Keep cups? Yeah, whatever. We'll do something to that. But rather than thinking that actually they're all part of the same thing, you can't just say like, here is something we'll do for the environment, and then we'll go back to doing something normal for people that people like.
Yeah.
It's like, we live in a society.
If people want to, off the back of this, I'm thinking about like what people could read, but Sinead Mercier is really good.
Yeah,
stuff
she's
on
great.
This. She's an Irish. She writes some stuff on this. She's a good article somewhere, I don't know where, but about have you heard of that like donut theory of economics?
Yes, I have.
I don't know what it is, but
still trying to wrap my head around it.
But it's very interesting because it talks about like how the economy could be restructured to look at more environmental stuff in a very easy to understand way.
There was
like, as in when you're reading it, you can follow it, and then I've just forgot it. That's why I don't know what it is.
She, I was, I don't know, back in the day, this is literally 3 years ago, but I was like working in an animation studio and just needed a lot of podcasts, and it was very difficult to find Irish politics podcasts. Thankfully, there's a few more out there now. But I was trying to find anything that was more local, that wasn't American.
Yeah.
And I found this one, and I cannot remember the name of it. I think it's over now. But it was a bunch of students in the UK making like a podcast. I think they were PhD students, but they had on some guests. Like you'd be like, oh, that was an interesting guest or whatever. But the weirdest one that they had on was the woman who came up with the donut economy.
Oh yeah.
They had her on to talk about her book.
Duncan.
And then is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then one of the things is like she's like they were like talking about it, and she tried to explain it, and I couldn't really grasp it, but I was getting around to it sort of, and I was trying to find the book and trying to get more about it. But then anyway, at the end of it, she was like, they were kind of talking about like, oh, do you have anything to plug? Or it was like that section of the podcast. They didn't say plug, but basically she was talking about the application of the donut theory. And she's like, oh, it's interesting. Like they might be trialing it in New Zealand at some stage in the future. And it was just such a weird thing to have a podcast with like a few hundred listens that was recorded with a bunch of students. And they're interviewing this person who's come up with an economic theory that an entire country might implement.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
And then the other guy's like, no, nothing. I have nothing to play.
Yeah.
Follow me on Twitter, I suppose.
Yeah. Get me at Funky Monkey 79.
There we go. So what was her name?
What was her name?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What did I tell you it was?
Duncan.
Yeah. And what's her theory?
Donut theory.
Yes. You fell for it.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Dunkin'
What?
Donut.
Damn it.
End of part 1. Acast would not let us upload the whole episode.